Welcome to our Education Forum. We're on a journey today. For me, this is in part a personal journey as I go around the province of Manitoba and talk with people about where we need to go on education. For me, it is a journey of discovery, a journey of learning, and a journey in which I hope that we'll put forward an approach by the Manitoba Liberal Party to improve our education system. It is also a journey for all of us, education. It is not just K-12. It of course includes post-secondary education, and in today's world it includes lifelong learning. It is a journey for all of us. At the moment, there is a provincial education review underway. It is a timely moment to be discussing the future of education in Manitoba. There are widespread changes occurring in technology because of the use of smartphones and other changes in our society. There are concerns about whether children are learning the basic fundamentals in this world. There are concerns increasing about behavioral problems and violence in schools. So we're asking today, what changes do we need to make to ensure our education system meets the needs of students and will meet their needs in the years to come? As Lloyd Axworthy has pointed out, education is one of the defining ways to create a climate of innovation and growth for Winnipeg and for the province. Our educational systems need to be retooled to maximize the needed skills and attributes: strong fundamentals in writing, reading, coding, and math, creativity, critical thinking, communication and collaboration, grit, self-motivation, lifelong learning habits, and entrepreneurship and improvisation at every level. This quote is from Thomas Friedman, who's a forward-thinking individual who helps us to refocus on education in a different way than we have traditionally. So I have several questions for everyone today as part of this forum and this discussion. The first is, how is Manitoba doing in teaching the fundamentals, including math, reading, and writing? There are continuing concerns that I hear in these areas. The question is not only whether we're doing well enough, it is how to improve. And some feel that the way to improve is to put more time into math, reading, and writing, and others feel that the way to improve, in fact, is to make sure that we are raising children who are excited about learning, who are passionate about learning. And when they are excited and passionate and healthy, then they will learn better, and then they will know the fundamentals better. How do we address children who are not doing well in our current education system? This is really a fundamentally important problem, because if we can improve the learning for those who are struggling, we can improve the overall learning of all children. So who is struggling? It is children with learning disorders, children who have behavioral issues, children with mental health issues, and children who are not in school. How do we improve in these areas? So our second question is, what do we need to do to better help children with learning disabilities? This is an area where there's considerable variation from one area of the province to another. And indeed, in all areas, we still struggle to make sure that every child with a learning disability is identified as early as possible, ideally even before school, and then is helped, because it can make an extraordinary difference if a child with a learning disability is helped. There are lots of stories of children who have learning disabilities who are helped and went on to amazing careers. There are tragically too many stories the other way of children with learning disabilities who became frustrated, who developed behavioral problems, who became juvenile delinquents, and indeed too many of our correctional institutes contain a high proportion of children with learning disabilities who were not helped earlier on. So addressing this is really critically important. And one of the things that we as Liberals believe is very important to do is improve access to psychological assessments and psychological therapy so that this can be introduced early as possible. There are not waiting times, and children don't have to wait a year before they go into treatment because that year for a child is a lost year. It could be a year when they learn well, but if they are not helped, then it is a year which basically becomes a missing year that they have to make up later on. What do we need to do to address behavioral and mental health issues to ensure children are in school? I hear from my fellow pediatricians, children's doctors, that they are seeing more children with behavioral problems today than they have 10, 20, 30 years ago. And certainly mental health issues are more common today, or at least identified more in children than they have been previously. What do we do here? Interestingly enough, some of these behavioral problems appear to be because children are not in schools where they're in the right place and where they're able to learn. An interesting pilot project, a school, the New Era School in Brandon, has changed their classrooms so that children at the same learning level are in the same classroom. And because each child learns at different levels, and some are ahead in math and behind in language, and vice versa, this works out well. And strikingly, because the children are learning at the level at which they are at the moment, their behavioral problems and their discipline issues have decreased dramatically. So part of these behavioral problems may relate to how we structure our classroom and how we teach children. But there are nevertheless other behavioral problems which need to be addressed. And in those areas, as I mentioned before, I believe that we need much better access to psychological assessments and helps and treatment. In this way, we can help children. There are probably more answers, and that's partly why we have this forum to discuss this. In Stephen Covey's book, The Leader in Me, How Parents and Schools Around the World Are Inspiring Greatness One Child at a Time, he talks about his approach that every child can be a leader in some way, and that it is important to design a school and plan a school so that every child can learn to be a leader. This is an approach which differs from what we have traditionally done when we have thought that there are only a few leaders and most are followers. In today's world, with the change in technology, it is important that every child be a leader, every child show initiative. How do we do this? This is our next question. And in part, I believe that the answer lies in the school itself. And in the schools where Stephen Covey has worked and changed the approach, what he has seen is that a school where education was difficult, where children were not learning, when he started changing the whole school around and it focused on helping each child to be a leader, what happened was that each child became more self-confident. They became empowered to follow their passion. And the result was that the school, from a struggling school, became a magnet school where people from many other areas wanted to come to because it really helped children to learn and become wise and helpful leaders. One of the questions which is being asked is a child-centered and community-connected model possible for education today? Too often, our schools have not been as connected to the community as they might be. Is there a way to change this? There is a model for community-connected and child-centered schooling, and it's called the MET School. We have 2 MET schools in Manitoba, and both are in Seven Oaks School Division. And these schools, which are high schools, divide the children into small classes of 15 children per teacher. Each child develops an individual learning program facilitated by the teacher based on their individual interests and passions. And the result is that a child, for example, who has an interest in swimming learns about math through aspects of swimming, timing swimming races, and various other things, learns to write in terms of writing about swimming, learns to read by having a curriculum which includes a lot of reading and work and research around swimming. And so that the learning can be focused on the individual passion of the child. And interestingly enough, the traditional classroom, which occurs on Monday and Tuesday and Friday, Monday and Wednesday and Friday, is supplemented by 2 days, Tuesday and Thursday, in the community. And these 2 days in the community can be spent in some area related to the child's passion. And so that if a child's passion is the outdoors and forests and learning about forests, that child can spend some time in a government department learning about forestry, or in a business, a lumber business or forestry business, and the child can learn more about that area that they are passionate and very interested in. And this is a school approach which is now happening in about 200 schools around the world. It is changing the way that we think of education and develop education, and hopefully it will improve not only the learning of children, but their feeling of connectedness to the community, their feeling that they are able to follow their passion as well as learn at the same time. What is the role of mentorship and high expectations in our education system? This is question number 6. I will give you an example. I was not long ago at the University of Winnipeg, and there Mo Williams has developed a program for the basketball athletes, the athletes who are part of the University of Winnipeg basketball team. And the coach had approached him as a former basketball player and somebody who had, after some struggles, graduated with a degree in education, with the problem that he had that 7 of his players, some of his best, were no longer eligible because they didn't meet the academic expectations. So Mo Williams developed this program called Study Hall, and he met with the basketball players 2 evenings a week and 1 Sunday a month. And in this time, he spent time helping them learn how to learn how to study, learn how to do well in school, learn how to memorize things. And these very basic elements helped them to do better. But more than this, he gave them high expectations. Basketball players traditionally were given very low expectations for how they did academically. Mo said, look, you guys can succeed. He gave them high expectations, and they succeeded. The average, grade point average of the basketball players, which had been around 2, moved up to 4. It was a dramatic improvement. And not only did it improve their academic scores, but these players were able to continue playing basketball, and they started doing much better as a team and winning more games, and that was very exciting. One of the challenges we face in Manitoba is that we have an increasingly diverse population. We need to address diversity in our education system. How do we do this? Are inclusion and diversity important to our education system? As I heard at a recent forum which I hosted in River Heights, inclusion of children of varied abilities is tremendously important, not only to the child, but to the rest of the students and the teachers, because it helps everyone learn about others. It helps everyone learn about compassion and about inclusion and about the contribution, interestingly enough, that somebody even who is nonverbal with cerebral palsy can make to helping the other students. And diversity. Increasingly, we have, particularly in Winnipeg, children from many different cultures, indigenous cultures, from Philippine cultures, from Black countries in Africa who've come here. And we need to be able to respond to this and make sure that all cultures are included and respected. For example, in the United States, they have found that for Black children, it is very important that they have male role models and male teachers who are Black. And so in some areas of the United States, they now indeed mandate that for every 20 Black children, there must be one Black teacher. Now, I don't know that we have to go that mandating direction here, but we do have to recognize that it is important that children, when they learn, see in their teachers a reflection of the diversity of our community. We need Indigenous teachers and Black teachers and Philippine teachers and teachers from India and China and other areas. And this will enrich our education system, and it will provide children who come from other cultures with role models who they can identify with and improve our learning and knowledge for all of us. The New Era School in Brandon, for example, which has a very diverse population, benefited from each of the students from their many different cultures talking about their own cultures so that the whole class could learn about the world. Do we need to address mental and brain health better in our education system? I think this is an important question, and it leads us to look at the health of families, the health of our community. It leads us to look at aspects of nutrition. Strikingly, in Sweden, in a recent study, they found that children who had more fish in their diet, fish contains an important omega-3 fatty acids, which are important for the brain, that children who had more fish in their diets actually were able to do better in terms of their reading and their learning. We need to understand this. We probably need more research in this whole area. But optimal mental and brain health for children clearly has to be a front and center. And as I've mentioned before, part of this, I believe, is increasing access to psychological therapy as well as to good nutrition. How do we ensure children in all areas of Manitoba have access to a broad range of educational opportunities, from technology to hairstyling to power mechanics to theatre to advanced academic programs? In smaller school divisions, it is more difficult to provide this widespread access. Although when I was recently in Nipua, they talked there about their program, which they had through distance learning capabilities over the internet, access to 50 different advanced academic programs. So the impossible is becoming possible, even in rural communities. But it is an important question to ask, because we want to make sure that if you're in rural areas, that you have access to the sorts of opportunities that are more available at the moment in a city like Winnipeg. Many are asking at the moment whether we need changes to our school boards to improve our education system. The Conservative government appears at the moment to be moving toward a decision to eliminate all school boards in Manitoba. They have appointed people to their review board who are clearly interested in moving in this direction and knowledgeable about this area. But for many of us, we have concerns because the school boards provide an important opportunity for local input. And we have such a diverse province that local input is really important. And it is really important to make sure that our schools are connected to our communities. It is really important in terms of how you manage the individual budget, because some schools spend in one area up to 40% of their budget on busing and transportation of children. So the opportunities and to look at this question are here and now. There may be a stark choice between the approach that the Conservatives could take and the approach that Liberals would like to take, which is to keep the local input from local school boards. As voters, you will have a choice in the upcoming election, and we will see. But this is an important time to have this debate and to talk about where we're going. Thank you all for coming and participating in this forum. It's an exciting time in Manitoba. It's an exciting time in the world today. With all the issues we have, we need to make sure that our students are ready to take on the world.